Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's premier high school sports show, Prep Central, with your host, James Yodice. This show is presented by Western New Mexico University.
Hi, everyone. James Yodice with the Albuquerque Journal here. Second drop of the week for Prep Central, the Albuquerque Journal's high school sports podcast. Before I even start talking about what we've got coming up this week and go over last week, we want to thank Western New Mexico University, who sponsors this podcast, and we thank them for that most profusely. Anyway, hope you all are doing well. It is Wednesday afternoon as I sit with you here today, October 10th. So we're going to reflect just briefly on Week 7, some of the highlights from Week 7, and we'll get into Week 8 a little bit. There are not a lot of great games on the schedule, to be honest with you, here in Week 8, but we'll get to that in a minute. We had some really good games in Week 7, including several overtime games. Valencia and Chaparral went to overtime. Valencia won that game 52-44. We had Oregon Mountain and Carlsbad go to overtime. Oregon Mountain with a big 41-40 victory. And we had, in the game that surprised me the most last week, we had Mayfield beat Lovington 50-49 in overtime. Mayfield scored first in the OT, kicked the PAT to go up 50-43. Lovington came back and scored, decided to go for two in the win, and came up short. So that created a little bit of turmoil in District 2-5A, where all these Southern powers are located. Roswell took care of business. Artesia took care of business again. Artesia's been at 57 points now for 3 straight weeks and have scored at least 57 in 4 straight games. So Artesia, which is on a bye this week, leading the district, and they got a big game coming up against Roswell next week, and of course we'll talk about that more when the time comes. But Mayfield's win. Mayfield's been a hard team to peg. Mayfield lost a last-second game to Deming a week ago, and without that, their position in the district would be much stronger, and they would be right in the mix, to win this thing. I'm not sure they're there yet, but anyway. That district continues to be really strong. I want to talk briefly about some results that we need to get into. Now, from District 1-5A, which is the northern district in 5A, we had some really interesting results. Los Alamos came back and beat Belen 36-34. Los Alamos is leading that district. The Hilltoppers scored, I think, with 24 seconds left to win that game against Belen. Miyamura the next day beat Highland 36-31, so Miyamura is in second place behind Los Alamos in that district. I had a chance to watch Miyamura the other day. Some good offensive pieces on this team. The other teams in this district are all, they're all jostling for position. We've talked about this before. Look, only the top probably 5 teams out of 8 are going to get to the playoffs from District 1-5A. Now, Rio Grande and Del Norte are going to be 2 of the 3 that don't make it. The question is, who is going to be the other one? There are a whole bunch of teams jostling for position, to be honest with you, between Capital and Valley and Belen and Highland and whatnot. So we're going to see how that plays out. I wanted to mention, too, that Los Lunas, one of the key 6A games last week, beat up on Albuquerque High 28-7. That was a key game for Albuquerque High, which saw its winning streak ended at 4. Good win for Los Lunas, who only led this game 5-0 at the end of the third quarter. So Los Lunas poured it on late. Big win for them because Los Lunas is going to be playing at La Cueva at Wilson Stadium on Thursday night. So this is a game Los Lunas had to have. Speaking of La Cueva, they continue to just dominate people. They beat up on El Dorado 56-7. Look, nobody's getting in La Cueva's way until at least the playoffs. That's just it. There's no team in this district. And La Cueva, once they play Los Lunas, they'll have played all the real strong challengers in this district, to be honest with you. El Dorado, Sandia, Los Lunas. The back part of La Cueva's schedule is not very stout, so this game on Thursday represents really the last team that could even possibly hope to be competitive with La Cueva, and that seems unlikely given the way La Cueva is going. District 1-6A got underway last week. We talked about that. Cleveland with a big 50-0 win. That game ended at halftime over Farmington. I was at that game. I'm not sure the last time, if ever, I've covered a game that ended at halftime because of the mercy rule. And if I have, I don't remember when it was. Cleveland was very impressive. Rio Rancho beat Cibola 28-0 in that matchup, and Volcano Vista went on the road and beat Piedra Vista 48-7. So that district is underway. We're going to have a few big matchups. None of them really this week. Starting next week, I think we have Volcano Vista and Rio Rancho. We still have Volcano playing Cleveland and Cleveland playing Rio Rancho, all coming up in the last 3 weeks. So if we think about some of the other games that need to be talked about, one of them that stood out to me was the game between Taos and Espanola Valley. Taos beat up on the Sun Devils 27-7. Espanola was ranked number 2 the prior week. They lost at home in overtime to Bernalillo. We talked about that. And I thought we might see a bit of a letdown from Espanola. I did not pick Taos to win that game, but Taos with a very impressive win. And now Taos is in position to make a lot of noise in that district. They still have to play a couple of the heavyweights in that district, including Bernalillo. So we're going to see how Taos plays out. They've already played Bloomfield and not done very well, although Bloomfield's beating up on most everybody in that district. So those are some of the highlights from Week 7. And one other one I wanted to mention too, I'm sorry. Del Norte beat Rio Grande 21-19. First win for Dallas Peterson, Del Norte's first-year head coach. They've had a real struggle of things, so congrats to them. I want to talk real quick about our Stars of the Week nominees for Week 7. We got some good ones. I got 5 of them for you. And voting, you can vote on abqjournal.com all the way through Saturday afternoon, maybe around 5 o'clock or so. So our 5 nominees this week: Zayden Davis, the quarterback from Centennial. He has been on our list before this year, and and he'll continue to be on the list as long as he does things like he did last week. 17 of 21 for 259, 3 scores, also rushed for 175 yards and 4 touchdowns. Big win for Centennial over Alamogordo, so Zayden Davis accounts for 7 touchdowns in that victory. 2 Bernalillo kids on the list this week. Uriel Castro, the senior quarterback, 341 passing yards, 7 touchdown passes as they beat up on Kirtland Central. His running mate, Joseph Duran, a junior wide receiver. Duran caught 4 passes, all 4 of them for touchdowns for Bernalillo. He is on our list as well. He had 167 receiving yards. Jordan Hatch, the junior quarterback from Cleveland, he threw for 300 yards exactly and 5 scores, and that was just in 24 minutes of work. And the 5th kid, who I can't say enough about him, Michael Storms III. He's a junior running back from Valencia. He rushed for 318 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime for Valencia in that key win over Chaparral, that crazy win over Chaparral. And Chaparral is one of those teams we should give props to. Chaparral's won a couple of games already after starting the year on a 41-game losing streak, lost their first 2. Losing streak extends to 43. They've won a couple of games since then. They've been competitive, so good for the Lobos that they're doing so well. We're going to talk about Week 8 games here in a second. I do want to mention, if you want to find my prep picks for the week, Adam Deal, of course, the voice of New Mexico United, has been picking against me all year, and I've been crushing Adam like crazy the last month. Adam beat me last week. He was 18-4. I was 17-5. You can find our picks in the Thursday print edition of the Albuquerque Journal, and you can find them on my social media account as well, at James D. Yodice on X, formerly known as Twitter. As I sit here and talk to you today, I have not yet made my picks for Week 8, but there are some good games on the board. As I said, it's not a great, deep slate of games. one of the great games on the board is a 2A game between Eunice and Texaco. Texaco ranked number 1 and the defending state champion. Eunice ranked number 2. Eunice was the team that lost to Texaco in the state final last year. And this is one of 3 number 1 versus number 2 games we've got coming up either this week or next week. Next week we got Bloomfield and Bernalillo, 1 versus 2 in Class 4A, and Roswell versus Artesia, Artesia's 1, Roswell's 2. Those 2 teams are playing next week at Bulldog Bowl. So a lot of 1 versus 2 matchups we've got coming up this week and next week. But Texaco's unbeaten and really have just been sticking it to people all year. But this is going to be their toughest test by far. Cardinals certainly looking to get a measure of payback for the way Texaco beat up on them in the championship game last year. I think Texaco put up 44 points on them in the state final last year. Robertson and West Las Vegas is on the list this week. That's one of the state's great rivalry games and a great district game. Those 2 teams both still have to play St. Michael's before the end of the regular season. But in the meantime, this is a big game, 6 o'clock on Friday. West is the host team. One of the key 6A games, Hobbs and Centennial. When Hobbs played Las Cruces a couple of weeks ago, did not go well. Hobbs is certainly hoping for better results. This time, the only way Hobbs is going to interfere with Centennial or Las Cruces winning this district is to win this game. But Hobbs is going to come in as a heavy underdog on the road at the Field of Dreams. There's a key game in Class 4A, St. Pius, which is coming off a win over Academy, in which they scored 2 late touchdowns to win 35-21. St. Pius is at Portales. Portales, after losing their quarterback, Paxton Culpepper, the Rams have started to find their way a little bit. They're starting to win with their new quarterback. So this is going to be a big test for a young St. Pius team on the road against a team that's really good defensively and might still have a chance to be a factor in the 4A playoffs. We'll see. As I mentioned, La Cueva is home, the number 1 team in the state on Thursday against Los Lunas. And one other game that I wanted to mention too, Farmington is down here in Albuquerque again for the second straight week down here in the metro area playing Volcano Vista. That game is also Thursday night. Hard to say how badly Farmington got beat up by Cleveland the other night, giving up 50 points in 2 quarters. Farmington, I think everybody agrees, is better than they showed. And now they're playing Volcano Vista. These 2 teams met in the quarterfinals, the first round of the state tournament last year. Farmington came down here, beat Volcano at Community Stadium in the first round. I think that was an 11-6 matchup. So Volcano certainly remembers that. They want to get a little bit of a payback if they can as well. Anyway, we breezed through it quickly. This is one of 2 podcasts I have done this week. The other one involves a long sit-down with former Cleveland coach Heath Ridenauer, former Rio Rancho coach David Howes. David's now the defensive coordinator at Cibola. Heath is now back in the prep ranks as the offensive coordinator at Cleveland. Both of them were serving on the UNM staff. I've got a lengthier podcast with the 2 of them this week. This is the second of the 2. That's why this was a little abbreviated this week. So I hope you'll give a listen to my chat with Heath and with Dave. They were awesome to talk to, had a lot of great feedback. Last thing before I want to get out of here, talking cross country, the Albuquerque Metro Cross Country Championships were held over the weekend. Gianna Raymer of El Dorado, of course, had a victory. Rio Rancho's girls won the team title. On the boys' side, Cody Sullivan of Rio Rancho was the individual winner, and Cleveland was the surprise winner in the boys' team standings. Rio Rancho came into the meet ranked 11th in the country, but their top runner, Charlie Voss, was at a meet in Indiana, so he did not appear at Metros, and they certainly missed him as Cleveland won the boys' title by 16 points over Rio Rancho. Rio Rancho is still the best team in the state, no question, but they certainly missed Charlie at this meet. And Cleveland's boys had 5 runners in the top 15. Really strong showing. Next big meet in cross country will be the pre-state extravaganza meet at Albuquerque Academy on October 18th. That'll be the last big meet before the state meet coming up in early November. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Like I said, 2 podcasts this week. I hope you enjoy the content. I hope to bring in more guests before the end of the football season. Take care. Once again, we thank Western New Mexico University for being our sponsor. You can find the podcasts on any number of platforms, including YouTube and Spotify and at abqjournal.com, SoundCloud, Apple. All of these platforms will allow you access to the Journal's podcast, not just mine, but the other content being created by other reporters at the Journal. So I thank you for listening. Go enjoy the football this weekend, and we will talk more next week.
Thank you for joining us. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.